What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of The Dig, a series dedicated to helping you improve profitability on your farm.
We're here on day 3 of Becknology Days. Had beautiful weather so far, looking good for today. Today, Colin and I are going to take you out and give you a little preview of Tour 1A, the best tour.
Best tour, absolutely.
The one that Colin and I give, and just show you what we've been talking about the last couple of days, and let's head on out there. I'm Aaron.
I'm Colin. Let's dig in. Let's go.
Let's go.
Aaron, we're down here at our 400 bushel plot, and I'll be the first one to admit, it's not really that practical.
What the heck are we doing down here then? This is practical farm research.
Hear me out. So what's the definition of insanity?
Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result.
Okay, so can we farm in 10 years the way we're farming now?
No.
So we have to be able to think outside the box, and that's exactly what we're doing down here. So down here, this has always been our 400 bushel plot, and we've been doing this since 2016. In 2016, we had our ditching crew come in and essentially put this on grade down here. Then we put in tile every 15 feet, and then in 2017, we worked with a company called Netafim, and they actually produced this drip line here. And we've knifed that in every 30 inches so we can be able to manage this crop from a NP and K all the way down to the micros and then even the water.
So after we did all that work down here, you might wonder, well, have you hit 400 bushel yet? Well, as a matter of fact, in 2020, we did hit 400 bushel.
We absolutely did.
And this right here is an ear from that year in 2020.
Ha! I got a whole field full of ears like that.
Now, the only difference is we had 44,000 of these ears down there. And what you can't tell by me holding this in my hand is how much we're increasing that kernel depth on this ear down here because we're managing this so intensively through that drip irrigation.
Aaron, people are gonna say, we got a linear down here. Obviously, you can see the linear behind us, but I just talked about having drip line. Why in the heck do we need a linear back here if we have drip line? I would think that drip line could be a lot more efficient than that linear.
No, that drip line is 100% more efficient when we start looking at feeding micros and doing that fertigation and macros and watering. But we're doing two pretty cool things with that linear. One of them being cooling the canopy of that corn crop during that critical grade and fill period. So think about nighttime temperatures in August and how that can affect how that corn plant relaxes at night, right? Just like you and me, we get into bed, we want to relax at night. If it's 90 degrees in our house, we're not relaxing very well. If that corn plant is real hot, 90 is an extreme number, but if that corn plant's hot, it can't relax like it needs to, and so it starts pulling sugars out of that stalk and not packing it into the ear where we want it. So we're actually running that linear across that corn crop on hot nights, trying to cool that canopy down just 1/10 of an inch, running it across there, trying to drive those temperatures down. We're also using that linear to do all of our fungicide applications. We'll do 3 different fungicide apps down here throughout the year, along with some insecticide every time we make a pass down there too.
So this drip line, yeah, it's not really practical right now, but we've actually started testing the actual drip line to see how profitable it is. Down here, it's always been our high yielding. We've always done both corn and soybeans all together as our high yield, but now we're starting to trying to maybe see how profitable that drip line is. So we're actually doing a nitrogen management study down here through that drip line where we're actually feeding sections of that drip line with nitrogen, and we're spoon feeding it all year long to see what advantages we can get out of that. And there's actually a 16.5 bushel advantage with that drip line compared to a control of just water. So it's pretty cool. So let's move on to our next stop and we'll talk about some micros.
Sounds good.
Let's do it.
Take us on, Dano. All right, so Colin kind of mentioned that what we're doing down here isn't exactly practical, right? But we're pulling some practical things out of the research we're doing down here. One of those being we're tissue testing every 2 weeks down here, and we've been doing that for 3 years now, and we're starting to see some pretty cool graphs from the data we're getting. So we're starting to be able to really tell when corn plants are using different micros and macros. And the big takeaway for me and a lot of us here in the PFR team has been zinc actually in corn plants. So a lot of times zinc is thought of as being kind of needed earlier on in the corn plant. We think of it as like a starter additive or maybe a side dress additive or a foliar application, like a V3, V4 type frame, something like that. But it's really cool that we found out is we're spoon feeding these micros all year long. And when we start looking after that tassel time frame, that corn plant is still using zinc actually all the way down to black layer. So that's led us into kind of readdressing how we need to be applying zinc and when we need to be applying zinc to our corn crops. So now we're looking at it as even a fungicide additive around that VT R1 time frame, hoping that we can influence those levels a little bit through a foliar application to get us through those zinc demands later in the year.
All right, guys, so sulfur, it's one of the biggest macros we use. And down here at our high yield, we've always used the 10-to-1 back in 2018, but we're starting to see some pretty good size sulfur deficiencies. So we jumped up to a 7-to-1 and we still seen sulfur deficiencies down here in our high yield environment. So now, ever since 2019, we've jumped it up to a 5-to-1 ratio. And you know, why do we have to use so much sulfur now? Well, it's because we've cleaned up the environment, right? We got all these electric cars running around and all that DEF fluid you guys love in your tractors. That's something we're gonna have to start readdressing. And that's actually something that we've actually pulled out of our high yield, one of those more practical things. So in our multi-location sulfur timing study, rate and timing study, we go all the way up from a 33-to-1 all the way down to a 5-to-1, which we're using down here at our high yield area. And you can actually see on here, it's pretty well hybrid specific. So we got a 6282 that responds very well to sulfur, but a 6374 maybe not as much. So again, it's something that we're continuing to readdress, and we're gonna have to readdress. And again, we have to be able to think outside the box, and we have to move with those sulfur rates as we get cleaner air.
Guys, so that was just a quick little dive into what Colin and I are talking about on Tour 1A down there at High Yield. There's a lot more information if you join us for the whole hour-long tour. We also recommend, getting on other tours out here, Becknology Days, if you ever come. And we also want to plug in for later on some of our tent talks. Those will be virtual on YouTube, so you can check those out if you missed them.
Be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on The Dig.
Gotta get ready. Gotta get pumped. You ever just want to be like Leonardo DiCaprio?
I was honestly just thinking that.
Check, don't let go.